The sky was heavy with grief as I walked into the cold church, the echo of my footsteps swallowed by the silence around me. My hands trembled and clutched the black veil that hid the tears I could not stop from falling. The scent of flowers mingled with the smell of polished wood and old books, and every step felt like moving through a dream that I did not want to wake from. I remembered the first time I had seen him, his smile lighting up the crowded room like the sun breaking through storm clouds, and I had known even then that he was the one who would make the world feel safe and warm and full of love. Now he was gone, and the thought of life without him pressed down on my chest like a weight I could not lift. The priest spoke in low tones about eternity and memories and the importance of holding on to the love we had shared, but his words were like whispers in a storm. My mind could only replay the moments of laughter and quiet nights when his hand had held mine and everything had seemed right. The pews were filled with faces I recognized from different chapters of our life. Neighbors, friends, colleagues, distant relatives, and even strangers who had crossed our paths, and all of them were there to pay their respects, but none of them could feel the hollow ache inside my heart. None of them could hear the silent scream of a love ripped away too soon. My phone buzzed in my clutching hand, and I almost dropped it, fearing another cruel joke or mistake. But curiosity burned brighter than fear, and I opened the message. The words were simple, yet they froze me in place. I am still alive. Trust no one. My heart stuttered and then raced as disbelief collided with hope, with fear, with 1,000 emotions I could not name. I looked around the church as if the answer might be hidden in the mourners, their faces calm, polite, and unaware, but something inside me whispered that everything I thought I knew was about to change. I remembered the way he had looked at me yesterday, the final evening we had shared a quiet dinner, and the way he had kissed my forehead, lingering with a tenderness that seemed like forever, and now forever was shattered. Yet perhaps it had only been a lie. 1,000 questions assaulted my mind. Who was behind the message? Why now? Why me? Could it really be him? Or some cruel trick played by someone who wanted to see me crumble? I felt the walls of the church closing in as I sank deeper into the wooden pew, unable to move or speak. The echo of the organ filled the space around me, and I imagined his voice whispering my name, carrying warmth and urgency that the cold air could not suppress. My hands shook as I typed back a simple reply, just a word, yes, and I waited for the reply that might never come. The minutes stretched into eternity, and every tick of the clock was a reminder of the fragility of truth and the danger of trust. When finally the reply came, my breath caught. It was a single sentence that made my blood run cold, but also ignited a spark of hope. I cannot explain everything yet, but meet me tonight by the river where we first met. My mind reeled. The place was dangerous, deserted at night. The memories of laughter and stolen kisses mingling with fear and uncertainty. I had always thought that love would protect me, but now it seemed love itself was a trap, a siren call that could lead me into darkness. Yet I knew I had to go, because if there was even a chance that he was alive, that truth was worth every risk. I looked around one last time at the faces that had gathered to mourn him, the pity, the sadness, the false condolences, and I realized how fragile the illusion of certainty had been. I rose from the pews, my heart pounding, every step carrying the weight of grief, fear, and hope intertwined into a knot that I could not unravel. I left the church unnoticed, my veil hiding the tears that threatened to betray me with every step toward the unknown. The wind caught my hair and whispered through the trees, and I imagined him standing there, waiting for me, the man I thought I had lost, the man who was alive somewhere and calling to me to trust no one but him, only him. My phone buzzed again, and my name appeared on the screen with a message that simply said, "Tonight," and a heart. I pressed my lips to the screen and whispered a promise that I would go, a promise that I would not turn back, no matter what. I had to see him, had to know the truth, had to confront the impossible. The road ahead was dark and uncertain, and yet every step I took was fueled by a love that refused to die, and a hope that perhaps death itself could not claim the one I had loved with all my heart. The night wrapped around me like a velvet shroud, and the path to the river stretched ahead dark and silent, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Every step I took crunched on fallen leaves and twigs, my senses alert to every sound, every rustle in the shadows. My heart raced, and yet it was not only fear that propelled me forward, it was hope, a fragile, flickering flame that refused to be extinguished. Memories of him flooded my mind, the way he had held my hand under the sunlit sky, the warmth of his embrace, the soft laughter that had filled our small apartment, and the way he had whispered secrets meant only for my ears. Now, those memories were poisoned with uncertainty, and yet they were the only compass I had, guiding me toward him, toward the truth. I did not know if I could trust the message, if I could trust the person who claimed to be him, but the thought of never knowing was unbearable. My phone buzzed again, and I froze in place, hands trembling as I read the words. "I will be waiting by the old oak where we carved our initials." I swallowed the lump in my throat and pressed forward, the river now a faint glimmer in the moonlight ahead, the water whispering secrets only it could understand. The trees on either side of the narrow path seemed to bend closer, as if to warn me to turn back, and yet I could not. I had to know if the man I had buried hours ago was still alive, or if I was walking into a trap. The wind carried with it the scent of wet earth and decaying leaves, and the occasional flash of movement made me startle, but I could not turn back, not when the possibility of seeing him again shimmered before me like a mirage. I remembered the arguments, the small disagreements, the times when we had disagreed over trivial things, and the moments when he had held me close and reassured me that everything would be okay. I had always believed in the permanence of love, and now that belief was crumbling around me. The riverbank appeared ahead, the moonlight dancing on the water, casting silver reflections that seemed to reach for me, beckoning me closer. I saw the old oak tree standing tall and silent, and my breath caught in my throat. My heart told me to run to him, and yet my mind screamed caution. I approached slowly, my eyes scanning the shadows, every instinct screaming danger, and yet the message in my heart was louder than the fear I had carried through the day. My phone buzzed one last time, and the words read, "Come closer," and I stepped forward, each movement deliberate, careful yet desperate. My eyes adjusted to the darkness, and I saw him standing there, tall and familiar, the man I had mourned mere hours ago, his eyes scanning the water, the moonlight catching the lines of his face that were still unmistakably his. My legs felt like lead, and yet I moved toward him, my voice caught in my throat, and when I finally reached him, I could barely whisper his name. He turned toward me slowly, and the shadows shifted on his face. The eyes that met mine were the same eyes that had held me in love, and yet there was something different, something urgent, something dangerous. I wanted to run into his arms, but a part of me held back, the warning from the message, "Trust no one," echoing in my mind. He stepped closer, and the scent of him, the familiar warmth, made my heart ache, and I wanted to believe that everything would be okay, but his eyes told a story I could not yet understand. The river whispered beside us, and the leaves rustled in a way that seemed to carry secrets only the night could hear. He reached out, his hand trembling slightly, and I took it, my fingers brushing against his, and electricity shot through me like the first time we had touched. I could feel the pulse of life in his veins, and yet the danger that hung around him was palpable. My mind raced with questions, and he spoke softly, in a voice I thought I would never hear again. "You were never supposed to bury me. You were never supposed to believe them." And I wanted to shout at him, to explain, to tell me everything.
but the words died in my throat. His eyes searched mine for trust, and I wanted to give it, and yet fear gripped me, a fear that had no name. I remembered the last moments we had shared, the dinner, the laughter, the kiss, and the way he had whispered, "I will always protect you." And now the meaning of those words had shifted into a puzzle I could not yet solve. He led me away from the riverbank into the shadows of the trees, and the air was thick with tension, every sound amplified, every rustle of leaves, every splash of water, a warning that danger was near. And yet I could not turn back. I had to follow him to understand the truth. His hands gripped mine, and I felt the strength and fragility at the same time, as if he had been through battles that I could not see. He paused beneath the low-hanging branches and whispered the story of the night that changed everything, how enemies had come for him, how lies had been spun, and how everyone I had trusted had been part of the deception. My world tilted as I listened to him recount the betrayal, the murders, the false reports, and the reason he had had to vanish, leaving me to mourn, believing him dead. The tears I had held back broke free and streamed down my face as the river reflected the moonlight and the truth unfolded like a cruel awakening. The danger had not passed, he told me. The people who had tried to take him were still out there, watching, and every move we made had to be careful, every trust questioned. And yet I wanted to hold him and never let go, but reality was sharp and jagged, and I had to be cautious. I asked 1,000 questions, and he answered only what he could, leaving shadows and gaps in the story that my mind filled with fear and doubt. The night stretched endlessly around us, and the cold seeped through my coat. Yet I felt warmth from him, the reminder that he was alive and the world was not yet finished with its cruelty. He guided me to a hidden cabin by the riverbank where we had spent summers away from the world, and I knew that even in danger, there was a place of safety. I wanted to collapse in his arms, but the adrenaline and fear kept me standing. He looked at me with a mixture of relief and urgency and whispered, "Do not trust anyone, not even those who claim to be friends, for the path ahead is treacherous." I nodded my understanding, though my mind was spinning and I wanted to ask more questions. Yet he held up a hand and said, "For now, rest. For the night, tomorrow we plan our next move." Together, but still alone in the shadows of the world, I finally allowed myself to sit by the small fire he had lit and felt the warmth seep into my frozen limbs. The night whispered through the trees, and I imagined the dangers lurking just beyond the cabin walls. And yet I felt a strange calm, the knowledge that he was alive, that the world was not yet finished with its cruelty. My phone lay on the wooden floor silently, and I knew that tomorrow would bring decisions and revelations, but tonight I would cling to the living proof of him, the pulse of life, the warmth of hands, the look in eyes that had haunted my dreams since the funeral. I leaned against him and closed my eyes and allowed myself to imagine a future where fear was held at bay by the strength of truth and love. And though the shadows of betrayal and danger stretched endlessly, I felt a flicker of hope that perhaps survival was not impossible, that perhaps together we could navigate the treacherous path ahead and reclaim the life that had been stolen from us in silence and darkness. And yet, as sleep threatened to take me, I could not shake the warning that had started this journey. Trust no one, and the whisper of voices in the night that suggested the worst was yet to come. Dawn crept over the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of gold and crimson, and I lay awake beside him, my mind a whirlwind of fear, uncertainty, and fragile hope. The night had revealed truths that twisted my understanding of the world, and yet seeing him alive had ignited a fire that would not be extinguished. I could hear the river murmuring outside the cabin, its flow steady and eternal, and I imagined that it carried secrets like ours, down to unknown places beyond our reach. He stirred beside me, his eyes opening slowly and locking onto mine. In that gaze, I felt the weight of unspoken promises and the tremor of dangers that still lingered.
We had survived the impossible, and yet the world outside was not yet ready to forgive the lies, the betrayals, the shadows that sought to claim him again. He whispered my name, and I felt the vibration in my chest, my heart responding with relief and terror intertwined. He had been alive all this time, hiding in the shadows, weaving a web of survival while I mourned, believing him gone, and I wanted to shake the world for the cruelty of it, and yet I had to be careful, because the enemies that had come for him were not idle. They were out there, waiting, watching every move, every message, every whispered breath, and the warning, "Trust no one," echoes louder than the morning birds singing outside the cabin. He pulled me close, and I felt the familiar warmth, the strength and fragility that I have loved for years, and yet the danger surrounding him made every heartbeat a reminder that happiness was temporary and fleeting. I asked questions, my voice trembling with urgency, and he answered with fragments of truth, leaving gaps that my mind filled with fear. What had happened that night? Who had betrayed him? Why had no one told me? The answers were pieces of a puzzle scattered across years of deceit, and yet I clung to each word like a lifeline. He told me about the enemies who had infiltrated our lives, the lies spun by those we had trusted, and the dangers that had forced him to vanish, to fake his death, to protect us both. And I felt a mixture of anger and relief. The world had been cruel, and yet we had survived. My hands shook as I listened to the details, the names, the plans, the betrayals, and yet I knew that even in this storm, there was clarity, a path forward if we were careful, vigilant, united. He held my hand tightly and whispered that we must leave this place by nightfall, the cabin a temporary haven, and I nodded my understanding, though fear clung to me like a second skin. The hours passed in silence, except for the occasional rustle of leaves outside and the soft murmur of the river, our minds preparing for what would come next. Each movement was deliberate, every glance a calculation, every breath measured, because the world outside was dangerous and we had to be ready for it. He led me to a small compartment beneath the cabin floor where he had hidden supplies, maps, and documents, everything we might need to survive the days ahead, and I marveled at the careful planning that had kept him alive. I asked him if he had ever feared I would move on, if he had doubted that I could wait, and he shook his head with a faint smile. No one could replace what we have. No one could understand the truth, the depth of this love, and I felt the warmth of his words settle like a balm on my frayed nerves. The afternoon stretched into evening, and shadows lengthened across the cabin floor. He outlined a plan. We would confront the lies, the people who had sought to destroy us. We would gather evidence, reclaim the truth, and expose those who had spun deception around our lives. I listened intently, the weight of responsibility pressing on my shoulders, and yet alongside it, the thrill of possibility, the chance to see justice done, to confront the ghosts that had haunted us. He whispered that tonight we would return to the city, not as victims, but as warriors, armed with knowledge and a bond that could not be broken. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of fire and violet, and we prepared to move, every step silent, cautious, careful yet resolute. The path through the forest was treacherous, the darkness hiding dangers unseen, and I clutched his hand, feeling the pulse of life, the proof that we had survived the impossible, and that our love was the weapon and shield that would guide us. I could feel my heart pounding with anticipation, fear, hope, and determination intertwined, and the night seemed alive with possibilities and threats in equal measure. When we reached the outskirts of the city, the familiar streets felt foreign and cold. Shadows lurked around every corner. Faces that once seemed friendly now carried the weight of suspicion and betrayal. We moved carefully, blending into the night, the sounds of our steps swallowed by the hum of distant traffic and the occasional bark of a dog or rustle of leaves, serving as reminders that danger could appear at any moment. He whispered names of people we could trust and those we must avoid, and I memorized every detail, my mind a battlefield of strategy and emotion. The city lights flickered ahead, and I felt a rush of adrenaline, the thrill of the hunt, the need for answers, the need for justice, and the need to reclaim the life that had been stolen from us. We reached the apartment that had once been our home, the place filled with memories, both sweet and bitter, and he opened the door with a cautious glance around us. My pulse raced as we stepped inside the familiar space, now transformed into a place of strategy and revelation. He showed me the documents, the photos, the messages, the pieces of the puzzle that proved the deception, the lies, the betrayals, and I felt a mixture of horror and satisfaction. The world we thought we knew was a fragile illusion, and yet we had the power to unravel it. I asked him what would happen now, and he smiled faintly with a mixture of determination and weariness. Now we take back what is ours. Now we reveal the truth. And I knew that whatever came next, we would face it together. The hours passed in a blur of preparation, planning, and silent communication, our minds synchronized, our hearts aligned in purpose, and I realized that even in the shadow of danger, the bond between us had strengthened, the love that had survived death, betrayal, and fear. And the night deepened, and we prepared to confront those who had hidden behind lies, the people who had sought to destroy us, and I felt a surge of courage, a clarity that only comes when survival and love intertwine. The first confrontation came at the edge of the city, a face from the past, someone we had trusted who had turned away, betrayal etched into every line of their expression. I felt anger and resolute in equal measure, and yet he held me back, a gentle reminder that patience would be our weapon. Our words were measured, our actions deliberate, each movement a calculated step toward exposing the lies, the truth shining like a blade through the darkness. The night seemed to stretch endlessly as we confronted one deception after another, the pieces falling into place, the puzzle of betrayal unraveling before our eyes, and I realized that the world we had known was a fragile and transient illusion, and yet our love was unbreakable. I could feel his hand in mine, and the warmth grounding me in reality, the pulse of life reminding me that we had survived the impossible, and that together we could face anything. The final confrontation came at the place where everything had begun. The first home, the first love, the first promises whispered in moonlight, and I saw the faces of those who had tried to destroy us. The truth laid bare, the deception unraveling, and I felt a surge of triumph, tempered by the knowledge of the dangers still present. We stood together, facing the consequences of hidden truths, the weight of the past pressing on us, and yet the bond between us unshakable, unbroken, indestructible. Our enemies had underestimated the power of love, the strength of survival, the clarity of truth, and I realized that nothing in the world could sever the connection that had carried us through grief, fear, and uncertainty. The city began to awake as the night surrendered to dawn, and we stood hand in hand, the pulse of life between us, the warmth of hearts aligned, the knowledge that whatever darkness remained, we had the power to navigate it, to survive it, to thrive in the face of impossible odds. I looked at him and saw not only the man I had loved, but the proof of endurance, the living testament to hope and courage, the reminder that even when the world collapses around you, love can be the light that guides you through the shadows. And as the sun broke over the horizon, casting golden light across the rooftops, I whispered a vow that whatever came next, we would face it together, with hearts unyielding, spirits unbroken, and love that death, betrayal, and fear could not destroy.
If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Every single subscription motivates me to bring you even more exciting and dramatic HOA stories. And don't forget to tap the bell icon so you never miss a new upload. I'll see you in the next story, where justice gets even more satisfying.